Charles Hamaker here with you from Circling Seattle Sports. We're going to do a Sounders match reaction here from Lumen Field as Seattle splits the points with the Colorado Rapids by a final score of 3-3. This one is going to be very frustrating. It already is frustrating to obviously players, Coach Brian Schmetzer and the staff, as well as the fan base, just considering how the match went. This isn't a match where they split the points and they're going to be happy with it. They're upset. Brian Schmetzer was pretty visibly upset in his post-match press conference. Christian Roldan keeps his cool in those. He's a leader, consummate professional, all that sort of thing, right? Albert Rusnak, though, kind of seemed to, show maybe a tiny bit of frustration. Not much. He's also a pro, but this one was interesting. Seattle gets out to a 3-goal lead. First goal from, I'll pull it up here so I've got the exact stuff. Obed Vargas, in about the 16th minute, he gets a goal off of a deflection, which was pretty fitting. This was a big deal of a match because the Sounders were unveiling their Orca kit. That was a big deal to unveil the new kit, have the throwback sort of aesthetic. All of the screens, I think you can see it, one of the screens over there had, the throwback branding and all that sort of thing. Obed's coming off of being selected to the MLS All-Star game a few days ago, and so for him to get on the board first, it was obviously very fitting. It was fun to see that for him. And it gets Seattle on the board first, as they had the control of the match within those first 15 minutes. Possession was pretty even, but it really felt like the Sounders were the only club doing anything with it. And then things get interesting. Right before the half, Albert Rusnak is able to score his first goal of the night. He had an opportunity, missed a sitter earlier into the first half. And then something interesting happened here on this end of the field. Colorado Rapids goalkeeper Zach Steffen goes to take a touch towards the sideline with the ball at his feet within the box. And Jesus Ferreira, actually, for the Sounders, Jesus Ferreira provides some good pressure on Steffen to force, a pass that, ultimately goes into the middle of the field. Jackson Reagan heads it towards a wide open Rusnak, about 35 to 40 feet out from goal, and it's a wide open net in hockey. That's a yawning cage. Rusnak with a nice hit, makes it pretty easily. It's just funny to see Steffen kind of run in at the end, has no chance at getting the ball, and the Sounders have a 2-goal lead going into halftime. They had gotten the goal off the deflection. They got that weird goal, coming off of this turnover from Steffen. Let me hold this paper as it keeps flapping me. And so you think, maybe it's kind of fluky, but no. Seattle they weren't dominating possession. I think at halftime, actually, I looked, they were losing barely possession. It was like 52% to 48% in favor of the Rapids. But the Sounders were the only club to really have done anything with the ball. Colorado had put a couple balls, crosses here and there into the box. Andrew Thomas had handled them with ease. It just seemed like, low danger opportunities, if anything, for Colorado. Nothing really of substance, nothing, that would really scare you in this one. So going into the half, felt pretty good with, it seemed pretty storybook. The Orca kit, it's the throwback week. The Sounders are going to want to show off that kit and showcase that. They're at home. It's an important stretch as we continue through the month of July, and obviously you're trying to improve seeding throughout the course of this second half for the eventual MLS Cup playoffs. Obed Vargas is coming off of being named to the All-Star team in MLS. He's had an incredible year so far. Obviously, it seems like at some point he will be sold off on a record transfer. Well, not on a record transfer, on a big transfer, as he takes his career ideally to Europe, and his ideal situation. Him getting the first goal obviously is really fun. And so Seattle going into the half with a 2-goal lead, things felt great. Things continued to feel great in the 47th minute when Rusnak netted his second to get the brace. He gets a ball up right ahead at the top of the zone, right at the top of the box. Nice pass from Danny Musovski finds him right at the top of the box. There's some traffic in front of him, but he's able to thread it. I think Brian Smetcher said it best, through a guy's legs and beat the keeper, on Albert's left-hand side shooting, towards goal, beat him on that post and make it a 3-goal lead. So at that point in the 47th minute, everything feels great. Seattle's got this lead, this 3-goal lead. It's the Orca kit. They feel great. You think, okay, they're going to go into this match and finish it with the win. 3 minutes later, things change. A penalty's given to Colorado. This one was kind of soft, I thought. The Rapids player in the box had lost possession of the ball, and it looked like he ran into a Sounders player to give up possession. And, he ran into the Sounders player and acted like the Sounders player had tackled him. I thought it was a soft call. Talked with some of the other media in the press box at the time, and they agreed it was soft, but understood it was a penalty. Understood why it was called, rather. And Georgi Mihailovic for Colorado scored that first penalty. Then about 3 minutes later, the Rapids get a second penalty as everything really started to shift momentum-wise in their favor. In this one, a Rapids player had gotten in through, clean to the box, towards the edge of the box, though. And as Brian Schmetzer put it, Andrew Thomas, he's a young goalkeeper trying to make a play. He goes and tries to, basically land on the ball or engulf it, and ends up, instead taking the Rapids player out. He does get part of the ball, but he also took out the Colorado Rapids player, his ankle. He took out his ankle. So I can understand that a lot more than the first penalty. Chris Bassett, I believe it was Chris Bassett. I might be thinking of former Oakland A's pitcher Chris Bassett, Cole Bassett, same first letter of that first name. Slots that one home, top, middle, and it's a 2-3 game. And you think, well, this is just like the last match against Kansas City. And I would tell you, yes, it is just like that last match against Kansas City, where Seattle gets this 3-goal lead. They, aren't able to finish. They aren't able to close this match out, or find another goal to really further, the advantage that they've got. And, we're in the same situation again. The difference here is that the Rapids keep things up, and they get the equalizer in the 75th minute. A substitute for the Rapids, Darren Yappy, is able to slice his way through the Sounders back line and score the equalizer. And you think, oh no, we are all tied. So Sounders, there was 10 minutes of added time. Seattle was not able to capitalize on that. So yeah, it ends up being 2 dropped points at home, a draw. And it's pretty shocking. I mean, given the way that they had started, given the way that they had looked for the first half of this match, sorry, there's some people around me. I really thought that the Sounders were going to be able to pull away from this one and, call it good. Even if it was just surviving at the point where they were leading 3-2. But Colorado continued the momentum. It was not great to hear the cliche, right? But it was a tale of two halves. Seattle was connecting on their passes in the first half. They looked dangerous. They were, at least able to turn possessions into something and put them into dangerous areas, put them into potentially dangerous areas and advance them up the field. In the second half, there was none of that. Part of that was seemingly Colorado getting the momentum. The other part of it just seemed like some of the players were gassed. Christian Roldan, who's been so big for the Sounders and a guy that I thought should have been an MLS All-Star, looked pretty gassed by the end of this match. And see if I can prop you up here. He seemed pretty gassed by the end of this match. Probably thought he could have been subbed out of this one, honestly. It was interesting to see Jesus Ferreira subbed out. I know He hasn't necessarily had all of the goal contributions that people have hoped for. I've talked about this on our Sounders show, Sound Waves from the Sea, but I'm going to keep moving because there are more people. He had that good pressure to help get Albert that first goal, so was happy with him for getting that. Who else was potentially? I think Nico Moreno asked in the post-game press conference, asked maybe about the wingers getting changed in this one. So, I don't know. It was interesting. The substitutes were a bit interesting. I mean, sorry, I'm going to prop you up again here as I get away from these people. Seeing Ryan Kent and Pedro de la Vega come on and Reed Baker Whiting come on, I thought that made sense. It looked like you were going to get... Sorry, I'll prop you up here. I thought, that was clear. Hey, we need a fourth goal here. We're going to try to win this thing. We need to win this thing kind of mentality to end this one. Just missed opportunities. It's really interesting what's happened with this club discipline-wise as of the last 6 league matches. In the last 6 league matches, the Sounders have conceded 6 penalty goals. In the last 4 matches, last 4 league matches, I believe it is. Might be 4 matches. The Sounders have been shown 5 red cards in total. That, Jada Evans with the Seattle Times, I had mentioned that to Jada before we got going. Let's see if I can get this microphone here because I don't know if I'm too far away from you to hear me properly. But Jada Evans, I mentioned that to her at the Seattle Times, and she brought it up to Brian. And Brian said that he wasn't really concerned about it because there was no specific trend with that. It wasn't one specific player. It wasn't one specific play. And I'm like, sure. You could also, I think what clicked for me in understanding that from the team perspective, right, hearing it from the team, because obviously as a journalist, as a reporter, as a media person, we can have all these thoughts, but it's always so valuable, of course, to hear it from the players and the coaches. Plug this in here. Oops. Sorry, from the players and the coaches. But what really clicked for me with Christian Roldan was saying that we shouldn't be allowing them. We should stop these plays before they even get to the box, which obviously, because, as he said, anything can happen in the box, and that's what was shown in a match like this, and shown last match against Kansas City on the road. So, that is really fascinating to me. Something that Christian brought up was they're not necessarily playing terribly. They have scored 6 goals in total in 2 matches. Scoring 3 goals a match, which they've done over the last 2 matches, isn't a bad thing. I don't know how much that'll continue, but they are getting out to these hot starts, which is nice. If you want to cope a little bit like me, you're able to withstand these pushes that these other teams have been made, pushes that are, self-inflicted if you're the Sounders partially and somewhat of the other team taking advantage. I guess it's also self-inflicted. But, the Sounders are such a fascinating club in that regard, seeing the offensive struggles that they've had largely throughout the course of the season. Now they've scored 6 goals in 2 matches, but they can't necessarily play a clean match in total, and it's hurt them now to drop points at home, so I don't know. It was interesting to see. It was interesting to see a few other things. Yamar comes back, plays really well. You saw the value of Yamar. I know I've talked about him and his value on our Sound Waves from the Sea podcast. John Bell, I thought, for a large part of the match, had a solid game at left back, filling in for Nuhu, who is serving his red card suspension. There was a play in the first half where it seemed like a Rapids player was going to have a clear shot on goal from just outside the box. John Bell leaps into it, the path of the ball, and stops that. And then there was another one where it looked like the Rapids were going to have a clear breakaway, one on O's opportunity, and John Bell's able to track back from the other part of the field and kind of muck up that possession. So Brian did kind of, I think, put some blame on him, called him sloppy on one of the penalties. So that, obviously not the complete match that I would have wanted for him, but thought Obed looked pretty solid in this one. Jesus, I think he had an assist in this one. I could be wrong. But for him to show the pressure that he did on Zach Steffen, to force that mistake, force him to put the ball in the middle of the field while he's out of goal, that was really encouraging to see. And Albert Rusnak, it wasn't the best opportunities. It wasn't the best performance for him, for him to miss that sitter, I believe, really early into the match. But he got the gift. Then he did score that second one, which is a pretty good goal. Obviously vital at the end of the match. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Sounders match react. Sorry I had to come out into the parking lot. I didn't really like where I was set up. I'm not the most knowledgeable soccer guy, but I wanted to do this and give my thoughts from what I saw from the press box and what I heard from the locker room. So hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed our post-game report that we did. Got a few other things we want to do. I think I'll do a day in Seattle Pro Sports, and I'm doing one of our day in the life of covering Seattle professional sports vlogs. So get all that done. I believe we've got rain training tomorrow. We'll do our weekly Seattle Rain show, Right as Rain. New guest for you on that. And then the Mariners are back on Friday. So Mariners are back. Sounders play again on Saturday. The Rain have a friendly on Sunday. Storm have players involved in All-Star Weekend starting on Friday, going into Saturday. So things are going to get pretty busy here. So hope you enjoyed. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. So where are you going to watch all of the Sounder away games this year?
Away games for the Sounders. Since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that's a great idea. Go Sounders. Hope we see you all here.